He didn't deserve to be hit like that. He was minding his own business, and in broad daylight, he just got hit and run.
First at 5 o'clock, calls for change and safety after a tragedy. Michael Franey was killed this week while walking in Beaverton, and neighbors feel improvements to the road could have saved his life. Thank you for joining us. I'm Laurel Porter.
And I'm David Molko. Franey was struck along Southwest Barrows Road, and that is where we find our Mike Benner tonight. And Mike, a terrible tragedy, and now a call to action.
Yeah, neighbors want to see change, that's for sure, David. Right now, we're at Southwest 157th and Barrows. This is where Michael Franey was hit and killed earlier this week. You'll notice behind me there is no memorial, just a small sign that reads, "A memorial would be too painful for family and friends." Instead, they're asking for donations to an addiction treatment facility, and that is because the driver suspected of killing Franey might have been intoxicated. In the meantime, people out here are wondering if this all could have been avoided if Southwest Barrows was safer.
This is a really nice neighborhood. People are nice, but once they get in their cars, it's kind of crazy.
Afway Price and her husband live at the corner of Southwest 154th and Barrows in Beaverton, the eastern edge of a stretch of road that saw a deadly hit-and-run crash earlier in the week.
I was truly saddened because it was right behind my door. I mean, right behind, my house.
This was the scene Monday night near Southwest 157th and Barrows. Authorities say beloved husband, father, and local umpire Michael Franey was out for a walk when he was hit and killed by a potentially intoxicated driver.
I just couldn't believe it, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not surprising.
Not surprising, according to Price, because she sees a lot of speeding on Southwest Barrows, a lot of crashes too. In fact, a city spokesperson says between January 2019 and January 2022, there were more than 30 crashes on Barrows, one right outside the Price's house.
I don't know if they were speeding or what, but they clipped the wall, they went across the road, and then there's like a barricade, and they hit it, and they jumped their car and flipped it, and it landed in the wetlands behind me.
Crashes like that one and the deadly one this week explain a Change.org petition that already has more than 600 signatures. The petition calls for safety improvements on Barrows, things like speed cushions or rumble strips, enhanced police enforcement, and an additional four-way traffic signal, to name a few.
There's just so many people now, and there's so many houses and apartments and new buildings and new restaurants that, and everybody's walking, that it needs to slow down.
The Prices agree and hope change comes sooner rather than later.
There is no need to make another family be sad and break such a bad news.
All right, again, the crash that claimed Michael Franey's life was a hit and run, but authorities managed to track down the driver, described as a middle-aged woman. No arrest yet, but this woman could face DUI and hit and run charges. We'll, of course, keep you posted. Laurel.
Thank you, Mike. Now to the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian forces say they have sunk Russia's lead ship in its Black Sea fleet. They claim to have hit the Moskva with missiles. However, Russian officials dispute this. They confirm the ship sank, but say it's due to an internal munitions fire on board.
We cannot confirm the Ukrainian reports that it was hit by a missile, but we are also not in a position to refute that, that it could have been a Ukrainian missile which struck the ship. We just don't have perfect visibility on exactly what happened.
Either way, American military experts say it is a massive blow to the Russian Navy's pride and could undermine the country's naval operations in the region. Meantime, Ukraine's military says Russia is building up for a major offensive in the east, mobilizing up to 70,000 troops. The latest data from the United Nations estimates more than 4 million people have fled their homes in Ukraine because of the Russian invasion. Now, a local couple who now lives in Poland is helping a family there get to safety. Christelle Kumwe joins us with more. Christelle?
Mike and Nancy Teske moved to Poland last year after spending decades living here in Oregon. When Russia started invading Ukraine, they didn't hesitate to lend a helping hand at the Polish-Ukrainian border. Home with her family.
At 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard those boom, boom.
Olga Zakroveska heard and felt the horrors of war when Russia invaded Ukraine.
When the missile struck Obolon region where we live in Kiev, my husband told me that it's high time for you to save children.
In Ukraine, men between 18 and 60 are barred from leaving the country. They have to stay and fight or assist in other ways. So Olga had to leave her husband, brother, and father-in-law behind, knowing she may never see them again. A risk taken for the safety of her 2 children.
Actually, my husband told me that this is your mission. This is your mission.
Olga gathered her 7-year-old son, 14-year-old daughter, and her mother-in-law. Together, they boarded a train to Poland.
It was the period of nightmare.
For her, the constant sound of bombs and missiles was not the scariest part of the journey. That came when the train had to make stops.
And I was afraid of somebody coming there, invading the train and doing some dangerous things like bombs.
After 19 hours of traveling, they finally reached Poland.
It was a kind of relief, yeah. It was a kind of relief.
A relief to know there was hope across the border. And that's where former Portland residents Mike and Nancy Teskey come in.
So the very first thing they needed to do was picked up from the bus station and given shelter.
The couple wanted a change and left Oregon several years ago. They now live in Warsaw, Poland.
So we picked them up and we brought them here to our home, our apartment.
They learned of Olga's story from someone they knew in Portland. The couple opened their home and hearts, helping with meals, medical appointments, and the visa process at the embassy.
Which involves how do they get out of Warsaw to the States where they hope to be.
They helped Olga's daughter get to Vancouver, Washington on a tourist visa. She now lives with her aunt. Olga hopes her son will join them soon. In the meantime, she's working on getting visas for herself and mother-in-law.
And I want, of course, my family to be reunited again because we are all separated. Husband there and my other relatives, children there, but it's okay because I'm happy that they are going to be safe.
A family separated by war, but united by the love of strangers.
We're not actually very unique.
Right.
We're one of many, many families, both at the American School of Warsaw and throughout Poland, that are doing what they can to help people.
We call them angels. We call them angels because we were blessed to have such people. And now I know that God works through people.
Olga is in contact with her husband and relatives still in Ukraine. Mike and Nancy say there are a lot of hurdles in the application process for a visa, and depending on the type of visa, prices range from $160 to around $600.
And one thing sticks with me here, they call them angels. Yes, they are. Christelle, thank you for that story. Let's get to new data from police, which is confirming a troubling trend we've been reporting on, a drastic increase in car thefts. According to the Washington State Patrol, there have been more than 12,000 vehicles stolen so far in the first 3 months of this year. That is roughly double what was taken in the same stretch in 2021. And these thefts often result in more than just stolen property.
It's very helpless and I feel violated. I get nervous every time I leave. I put a camera in my apartment.
You know, it's definitely a strange feeling, knowing that there was, somebody using my car in a way that I wouldn't use it usually. I think I kind of know what happened with the car just based on what was in there. I think somebody was just using it as a place to live for a little while and, to do drugs.
If current trends hold, there could be more than 50,000 cars stolen in Washington alone by the end of the year. On a related and somewhat uplifting note, a couple moving to Oregon has recovered their car and their rented U-Haul after both were stolen from a hotel parking lot. Portland police have managed to recover the vehicles. They vanished from a Comfort Inn in Troutdale. The good news, their Miata wasn't damaged, but it appears most of the couple's belongings are now gone from that U-Haul.
The son of Daniel Brophy took the stand today in the trial of Nancy Crampton Brophy. She's accused of shooting and killing Daniel, her husband, at the Oregon Culinary Institute where he worked. Bryant Clerkley's been following this case for us and joins us from the newsroom. Bryant?
Hey, Laurel, Daniel Brophy's son, Nathaniel Stillwater, spoke today about who his father was, and he testified about working for Nancy Crampton Brophy at her catering company for 6 years. He said he had a good relationship with Nancy, and she was a good grandmother to his daughter. Stillwater said after his father was killed, he was worried about Nancy's financial situation, so he offered her money, but she declined. He also said he was not aware that Nancy or her father had a gun until after his father's death. Stillwater said his dad never expressed interest in owning a gun. He said he did have a conversation with Nancy around 2016 about guns, but it was research for a book. Stillwater said he learned about his father's death after his grandmother called him.
My grandmother called me again to say that my father had been shot. Her words were, "Your sweet daddy." It was "your sweet daddy," which stands out in my mind because I'd never heard him referred to in that way before. He'd always been my father.
The state paints a picture of Nancy Crampton Brophy as a woman who lied to police about her whereabouts the day her husband died and stood to gain a significant amount of insurance money from Daniel Brophy's death. The defense says Nancy and Daniel were in love and had a great relationship, so she wouldn't have killed him. There was surveillance video that caught Nancy Crampton Brophy's van in the area of the Oregon Culinary Institute around the time of the murder. And I'll be staying on this trial, and it's expected to last for the next couple of weeks.
That video certainly intriguing, but so far just circumstantial as far as we've seen. Thank you, Brian, for staying across it. Well,